Let's see here. Hi, Darren.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
Good. How are you? So
I'm fantastic, thank you.
good. Today, I was thinking we could talk about some of the things that you're hearing from members, both truckers on the road and NATSO members. I know one thing you wanted to talk about was cleanliness. Tell me what.
Yes. So I had a really good call yesterday with one of my mentors and also some folks that have been driving up and down the road that I know, some of my nephews that are truck drivers. And right at the beginning of the start of the pandemic, we were talking about how clean the travel centers were and how much, great comments they were getting back from just general customers as well as professional drivers. Then, of course, we sent out, as you know, the survey to drivers, and overwhelmingly, the comments were about how clean the travel centers were and how impressed they were and how much they appreciated that. And then with that, both you and I had talked about the importance of not letting that slip back. In other words, that a expectation had been set and that it could potentially harm your business if you went backwards. Well, and as I referenced it just at the beginning and the top of the video, talking to some folks, they're already referencing that some of the travel centers back there are beginning to slip. And I just want to emphasize to all of our members in this day and age, whether it's post COVID or current COVID, cleanliness is going to play an even bigger role in travel center business. And again, that's just my opinion. And anecdotally, I can tell everybody that in conversations with folks this week, they're referencing that.
Yeah.
So there's comments about, from some of the drivers I know are saying, what, they've decided to skip certain locations because the cleanlinesses have gotten poor. Now, granted, we're all struggling with staffing, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. So there's other things that are certainly impacting that. But I would just like to remind members that, as important as inventory control is, as important as sales are and profits, cleanliness, I think, has to be way up at the top, especially during this period of time. The drivers that I'm talking to reference that, they went on to a couple of different places that the fuel was more expensive just because they felt safer there and because they were cleaner. So I just really strongly emphasize, as Americans are getting back on the road, all the members are mentioning, well, not everyone, we don't speak to everybody, but people in general are referencing there's a lot more RVs on the road. They're seeing some uptick in business. You don't want your store to be dirty. And again, staffing's a challenge, but I just want to remind people, keep those stores clean. There's been an expectation set, and members and families showing up and they don't feel safe, or it's long term, it's going to impact your business. You may not worry about it because it's only one customer's comment or two customers. But in this day and age, when we're all fighting for customers, I think the one and two customers are critically important.
Yeah. Especially we've been talking about if people are making habits that they're going to stick with. So
Yeah.
if you're on the not cleanliness list, then you're probably just out. Like you're not going to go back and check it out again.
Yeah, I thought you were spot on when you talked about that habit comment, because if you think about how it is kind of today, drive-throughs, right? Drive-throughs used to be really, really fast, and a lot of them are no longer fast, right? You stop at a McDonald's and maybe you expected to normally only wait 5 minutes, and now it's 25 minutes because they're so deep, right, with folks. So
Right.
you're going to look to make up time when you're on the interstate. You really are, and you're not going to go to places, as you kind of reference that you have bad feelings about. You're going to create a new habit. You're going to say, you know what? It takes me now 20 minutes to go through a Starbucks, as an example, and it used to only take me 3 minutes. And I'm just not going to waste any time going to a location that I have questions about. I'm just going to be focusing on that move me through as quick as possible, are safe for my children, are safe for me. They have good cleanliness habits. I just think it's going to become more and more important.
Yeah, totally. My husband and I were talking last night. So we've been up here in the Adirondacks for 11 weeks. In the first 2 weeks, we went to two different grocery stores and we do Instacart at them. And we're not like eating out. So our grocery store bills are really high. And we picked like one was the food was a little nicer and they were a lot faster. And so now, 10 weeks later, we've spent what, like $3,000 at that grocery store that could have gone to the other one if they had just done a few other things. Like they were basically very similar. It's like weird to think that those habits can have such profound effects on somebody's business. Um,
Yeah, I love that comment because when there's a lot of choices, a lot of us, pre-COVID-19, maybe it spread the love around. But I think now, especially as we've talked on earlier podcast blogs and the videos, safety, I think, is becoming a huge reason why people are doing certain things, right, wrong, or indifferent. And those businesses that don't have that focused first and foremost, I think are going to suffer. And as you reference, it's a habit, and once you get in the habit, it's hard to break it.
yeah, exactly. You mentioned staffing. I know we're hearing a lot of buzz from NATSO members on staffing issues. Talk about that.
Yes, I can. Oops, sorry about that. Yes, I certainly can. So, staffing, our members have referenced lots of different reasons why they're having staffing issues. So certainly some are being impacted by, the wages that they're receiving from unemployment, right? So customers don't want to come back. Some are being impacted, obviously, just by COVID-19, the fear of coming back, even if that person's not getting any kind of unemployment. And the competition that's out there, the salaries that are being paid by, grocery stores, warehouses, and so forth. Many members are reporting, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, $20 an hour jobs in their area. So all those three things coming together like a perfect storm, sorry. And staffing is an issue. And I just would like to remind folks is you better be thinking about staffing issues in the future when you're building locations. Both Don and I are always trying to remind people to be very, very cognizant of what are their costs of stocking coolers. Everyone gets enamored with 18, door coolers as an example, whether or not that really is going to drive profitability when they look at their numbers. In some cases it does, but a lot of cases it really truly doesn't. Once they analyze the numbers, they see that they could have gotten away with an 11 door cooler and just more focused on the top 20% items that really sell versus having this 18 door cooler that they've got to be constantly in there stocking the stuff that sells, but more importantly, moving all of those cases of other products around, right? Back injuries, slips and falls. And that goes to beer and some of the other stuff and just in general. So if you're having labor issues today, regardless of what's causing it, you certainly want to start thinking about technology, even if you're a single store operator. And if you're not thinking about technology, you better be thinking about how you lay that store out. And one of the great things about if you are a Six Sigma fan or a Hoshikarni person, this continuous improvement, it's worth looking at. What are the lengths of areas that your employees have to walk to stock your stores? Where is your storage room located? Those types of things. How easy do you make it on the staff if you only have 2 people on your 11 to 7 shift for safety? How easy do you make them to stock the cooler or to clean the floors and so forth like that? I would just say if you think you're having issues today, I only think those are going to get tougher. So if you're fearful of technology, you should embrace it. You should start looking at ways, potentially inexpensive ways, and maybe in some cases they are expensive to really combat the labor shortages.
You just put that report out for staff on some of the comments we're getting about staffing from Truckstops. And it was interesting to
Yes.
hear that some people are having a really hard time and some people seem to be doing okay. Do you think there's anything that the people that are doing okay are doing differently?
Well, you know what? This is what I would say, and it's controversial, but I'm going to say it because I do think it may upset some people. But it seems to me that the stores that truly really treated their employees like guests,
Yeah.
they seem to be the ones that are having the least amount of problems. It's interesting, even in those stores where hiring new people is a challenge, those folks that are doing a great job, and I'll give a shout out to 24/7, they reference that their steady eddies, as Mark called it,
Yeah.
are, they have got no problems with them, and I think it's a testament to someone like Mark and Butch and the management team there, that they do take care of their staff. I know when I visited their stores with them, it was apparent that their employees enjoyed working there. And I think some of the members that are having some massive issues might want to look at the mirror, look at themselves in the mirror and really reflect on, what's really causing their staffing issues. And again, there are definitely competition issues. If you're paying $10 an hour and they can go down and work, at a Walmart for 20, as an example, you're going to have problems.
Well, I
And there are definitely factual issues where it's unemployment problems, right? Where they can make more money. We know those are factual, but the fact what you're saying, that it's out there and we're hearing it from our members, there are some that aren't struggling as much as others.
yeah,
So
I thought that was curious. I mean, I would imagine if you're in a very rural area, which is not a lot of labor force, that's a different issue. But it's always
mhm.
interesting when you get stuff back that's like very, very okay. And the last thing we're going to talk about was some of the changes you're hearing that people are making. I know you posted a bit about drive-throughs. Are you hearing?
Yeah. So yeah. That kind of goes to what we were talking just a little bit earlier about, like store layouts or store designs or what you're doing with your store. Right now drive-throughs are really hot, and for complete visibility, I'm someone that's not a big fan of putting drive-throughs in travel centers, just because up to this point, with very few exceptions, those locations that I visited, their drive-through is either closed or it's performing incredibly poorly, and that's not because of the drive-through. It's just because of our lack of desire to really focus on it and commit to it and make it work. I mean, you have to be committed to making it work.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, I would challenge our members to be real careful about making future changes to their stores,
Mhm.
and or leaving out changes that they think are not either going to carry forward or they think they will carry forward. So right now, certainly the rage is, you're hearing a lot about drive-throughs from a lot of our members, and some folks are having success. Well, there's still quite a few members out there that are not having success, even though they had drive-throughs and they opened them. So I would just remind people, before you just jump, fully into that thought process of even adding a drive-through or building one, make sure you understand your demographics, specific for interstate travel centers. I just think it's going to be really hard to ask, a customer to wait in line an hour or 45 minutes to get a pack of cigs or a pack of, a 12 pack of soda, because we're not very clear about what a person can or can't get through a drive-through. The same thing about curbside pickup. I don't think you should just immediately cast that off as an example. If you think it's going to carry forward, if you do believe it's a new expectation, it's a new habit, as you kind of referenced earlier, then you need to have that in your planning stages. If you think drive-throughs are the future and they are going to be something that's, an expectation, maybe you need to rethink what a drive-through looks like. Maybe it has to be something more of a combo, 2-lane drive-through, and a pickup area, like a curbside pickup or something like that. But I'd just be very careful of just jumping into something, because those types of changes or lack of changes can cost you significant dollars in frustration and anger in the future. And again, just would highlight this: if you're struggling to get labor now, and you're going to put something in that's going to require more labor, and you don't know how to redeploy the labor you currently have, you're just asking for a recipe for disaster.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Karen.
Hey, I got one more thing. Can I add one thing?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, excellent. Recently there was a really great study that PDI and some, I think, NACS came out with, related to C stores and the impact that, like the day part. Forgive me if I'm not 100% accurate on this information, but essentially it was referencing, less customers shopping, lower, in some cases, lower average tickets, in other cases, higher average tickets, depending on the product line. And also then, day parts struggling, breakfast and lunch and so forth. And I would again remind our members in general, we're not experiencing that. And there's always exceptions, as we always share with people, both you and I, Amy, always say there's always exception to anything we're talking about. But what I find it really interesting, and I think people should hearken with a good, good heart or good feeling about this, is most of those things that are negatively impacting the C-store industry, for the most part, is not impacting us. So when I'm talking to members, most of our members are reporting still very strong and robust grab and go breakfast programs. Again, there are exceptions if they still have issues with the local community, city, state ordinances, but in general, that's doing well. And robust grab and go food programs and in-out food programs for lunch doing very, very, very well. Gasoline gallons, as most like the big chains are reporting, in general are down, but for the most part, not down as much on the interstate customers as they are with others.
Yeah.
We know that a lot of our independents are reporting great success on diesel, incredibly strong inside sales and diesel sales. And again, there's exceptions to every rule. But I think for travel centers, it's time to think about again what is driving that. What's allowing you to have the success you're having when other similar types of business are not. And again, obviously, we understand we have trucks, and a lot of folks don't have trucks, but I think there's more to that. And I would just ask members to sit down and think, with their management team or whoever there is in their leadership group, and really kind of outline on maybe it's on a whiteboard, but or a blackboard, whatever they have, a piece of paper, outline what's really causing those successes, because it's quite noticeable when we're having members that are saying they've got double digit inside sales increases, and it's not just beer or cigarette related anymore, that they're seeing strong other sales inside their locations, when again the vast majority of the convenience store folks out there are not reporting those kind of increases. And in many are reporting if it's that it's cigarettes and beer that are really driving those categories, which we experienced at the beginning of the pandemic. For sure, we were very, very similar in that, but now there's been a change and a shift. So I think it's worthwhile looking at and identifying what you're doing well, what's driving those sales, and then make it a focus.
I know you've been doing a lot of what we call wellness calls at NATSO, picking people's brains and checking in how they're doing. So that's a big part of what we do at NATSO, and I'm certain that they could call you.
Yeah, I would say, one of the, we're a niche operator, and that's what makes us good. We give concierge service. I mean, it's easy to get a hold of us. Sometimes it can be challenging, but just because of the sheer number of emails and voicemails and calls we get. But yeah, and what was really beautiful about it, as I referenced yesterday on one of our meeting calls, is members are just happy that someone took the time to call them. It's not a business call. We're not selling them or talking to them, anything. We're just saying, how are you doing? And I think they're very, very touched by that.
All right. Well, thanks, Darren. Are you done?
Thank you, Amy. See ya.